My brother raised my rent from $800 to $6,500 and left while my own family agreed. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Evan Miller. I'm a working father with 2 kids, and for the last few years, I've been living in a small, quiet house in Ohio. The house belongs to my older brother, Ryan. He owns several properties and always liked to remind everyone that he was the successful one in the family. When he first offered me this place, he said it was family helping family. The rent was $800 a month, fair and manageable. I never missed a payment. Not once. That house wasn't just a rental to me. My kids learned to ride bikes in the driveway. We painted their bedrooms ourselves. My wife finally felt settled after years of moving around. I truly believed I was safe there. One night, Ryan asked everyone to come over. He said it was important. My parents, Thomas and Linda, were there. My sister Claire too. We sat in the living room like it was some kind of announcement. Ryan stood up, smiling, like he was enjoying the moment. Very casually, he said the rent was going up. I expected maybe a few $100s. Instead, he said $6,500 a month, starting immediately. I actually laughed, because it sounded so ridiculous. I thought he had to be joking. Ryan started laughing too. Louder than me. Then my parents smiled awkwardly. Claire looked down but said nothing. No one defended me. No one asked if I could afford it. Ryan said it was market value and that I should understand how business works. I felt my face get hot. My chest tightened. I looked around the room, waiting for someone to step in and say this had gone too far. But they didn't. They just sat there, agreeing with him, like this was normal. That was the moment I understood something very clearly. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a joke. It was planned. And I was the only one who didn't see it coming. Looking back, I can see how slowly this situation was built. Ryan was always seen as the golden child. From a young age, he knew how to talk, how to impress people, and how to make money. He got into real estate early and loved telling stories about deals, properties, and profits. At family dinners, his success was the main topic. My parents listened with pride, like everything he touched turned to gold. My life took a different path. I made mistakes when I was younger. Nothing dramatic, just bad choices that cost me time and stability. I worked ordinary jobs, learned the hard way, and focused on staying consistent. I didn't want praise. I wanted peace. Over time, I rebuilt my life slowly, steady work, a simple routine, and responsibility. When I married Marissa and we had kids, my only goal was to give them stability. That's when Ryan stepped in with an offer that sounded like a blessing. He said he had a house sitting empty and didn't want to rent it to strangers. He told me, family takes care of family. He made it sound like he was doing me a favor, and I believed him. My parents praised him for being generous. I felt grateful, almost indebted. The house needed work. The floors were worn, the kitchen outdated, and the backyard neglected. Ryan said I could fix things as I liked. So I did. I used my savings to repaint walls, repair cabinets, and make the place livable. I didn't ask for discounts or favors. I treated it like it was my own home. Years passed. My kids grew attached to the neighborhood. The house became part of our identity. Family gatherings happened there. Birthdays were celebrated in that living room. Through it all, Ryan reminded everyone how he helped me, and my parents repeated it often. I stayed quiet. I didn't argue or complain. I told myself it didn't matter who got credit. I chose to ignore the favoritism because I believed trust mattered more. I believed loyalty would be returned. I truly thought that no matter what, family wouldn't turn on me. That belief lasted a long time. Longer than it should have. After that night, I didn't argue in front of everyone. I waited. The next day, I asked Ryan to talk privately. I wanted to believe there was some explanation, some logic that made sense. I asked him calmly why the rent had increased so much all at once. I reminded him that I had never been late and had taken care of the house. Ryan barely reacted. He leaned back and said it was just business. He told me the house was worth more now and that the price reflected the market. Then he said something that stuck with me. He said if I couldn't afford it, I should start looking for somewhere else to live. There was no concern in his voice. No hesitation. Just cold confidence. I went to my parents next, hoping they would understand. Instead, they surprised me. My father said I had been lucky to pay so little for so long. My mother said I should be grateful and stop acting entitled. They spoke like Ryan had done me a lifelong favor, not like I had been a reliable tenant for years. Every word made it clearer whose side they were on. My sister Claire was there too. She didn't argue with them, but she didn't defend me either. She stared at the floor and stayed quiet, like avoiding the situation would erase it. That silence hurt more than an argument would have. When I got home, I told Marissa everything. I tried to stay calm, but my voice cracked halfway through. She listened quietly, then started crying. Not loud, just the kind of crying that comes from fear. She asked where we would go, how we would move the kids again, and what we had done to deserve this. I had no answers. I felt exposed and embarrassed. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about being dismissed, talked down to, and pushed aside by people who were supposed to care. Anger would have been easier to handle. This was worse. It felt like being judged unworthy by my own family, and that feeling stayed with me long after the conversation ended. The days after that felt heavy and tense. I sat at the kitchen table late at night, looking at our bills and doing the math over and over. No matter how I arranged the numbers, it didn't change the truth. There was no way I could pay that amount. Even if I emptied my savings and worked nonstop, it still wouldn't be enough. The pressure sat in my chest every morning when I woke up. A week later, Ryan sent me a formal notice. It was printed, official-looking, and cold. When he handed it to me, he smiled like he had already won. He spoke slowly, explaining deadlines and consequences, as if he enjoyed watching me struggle. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded and took the paper. That's when I started noticing things I had ignored before. Ryan was suddenly always in a hurry. He complained about banks, loans, and timing. He made rushed calls in front of me and talked about money like it was slipping through his fingers. He mentioned needing cash quickly and joked about how stressful things had become. None of that matched the confident image he liked to show. For the first time, I stopped trying to please him. I stopped asking for understanding. Instead, I paid attention. I reread my lease and realized how many things were missing or unclear. I noticed how little paperwork I had ever been given. So I asked for copies of documents I had never seen before. Repair records. Agreements. Basic information that should have been shared from the start. Ryan's tone changed immediately. He became defensive and annoyed. He asked why I suddenly cared. I said I just wanted everything clear and in writing. I kept my voice steady, even though my hands were shaking. Inside, something had shifted. I was tired of feeling small. I didn't confront him or accuse him of anything. I simply observed and asked questions. Each request made him more uncomfortable. For years, I had played the role he expected, the younger brother who stayed quiet and accepted whatever was handed to him. That version of me was gone. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet. But I knew one thing for sure. I was done begging. And whatever came next, I would face it with my eyes open. I decided to speak with a housing attorney. Not to argue about the rent, and not to start a fight, but simply to understand where I stood. I needed clarity. I brought every document I had, which honestly wasn't much. As I explained my situation, the attorney listened carefully and asked questions that made me uncomfortable in a new way. He pointed out issues I had never considered. He explained that a landlord has responsibilities, and tenants have rights, even when the landlord is family. Then he asked about repairs and changes made to the house over the years. I told him the truth. I had fixed many things myself with Ryan's permission. Walls, wiring, plumbing adjustments. At the time, it felt normal. Now, the attorney paused. He explained that some of those changes required permits and inspections. Without them, the house could be considered unsafe under local rules. If the property were inspected, those issues could turn into serious problems. I felt my stomach drop. Not because I had done something wrong, but because I realized how careless Ryan had been. Then came the bigger shock. The attorney noticed the name on the rent receipts and asked about the company Ryan used to collect payments. I explained what little I knew. After a few checks, he told me that the company was in bad standing and not properly operating. That meant the way rent had been collected could be questioned. Suddenly, the pieces started to fit together. Ryan wasn't acting bold because he was strong. He was acting aggressive because he was cornered. He needed money fast, and instead of fixing his problems, he chose to squeeze me. The rent increase wasn't about value or fairness. It was about survival. I sat in my car afterward, staring at the steering wheel, letting everything sink in. For weeks, I had felt powerless. Now I understood that the situation wasn't as one-sided as it seemed. I wasn't trapped the way Ryan wanted me to believe. I didn't feel excited or relieved. I felt calm. Quietly focused. Knowing the truth changed everything. I finally saw what was really happening behind his confidence. It wasn't strength. It was fear. And for the first time since this started, I knew I had options. Another family gathering came not long after. I almost didn't go, but I felt it was better to show up than to hide. Everyone acted normal at first, like nothing was wrong. Then Ryan opened his mouth. He joked loudly about how I would be out of the house in 30 days. He said it like it was entertainment. A few people laughed. I didn't. I stayed quiet and focused on my plate. Inside, I felt steady. I didn't react the way he expected. That seemed to bother him. Later that evening, when things were calmer, I spoke to him privately. I didn't raise my voice or accuse him of anything. I simply asked him, in writing, to take care of a few repairs that had been ignored for a long time. I followed the proper steps and kept it formal. Ryan's face changed immediately. He asked why I was suddenly acting like this. I told him I just wanted everything handled the right way. Nothing more. Nothing less. He started pacing and talking fast. Then he snapped. He said I was being difficult on purpose. He called me ungrateful and said I was trying to make him look bad. The noise brought my parents into the room. Before I could explain, Ryan spoke first. He said I was causing problems and creating stress for everyone. My parents didn't ask questions. They didn't want details. They told me I should stop pushing back and accept the situation. They said I was making things worse for no reason. I looked at them and realized something important. This wasn't just about money or rent. This was about power. Ryan expected obedience, not respect. He wanted control, not fairness. And my parents supported that balance because it was easier for them. I didn't argue anymore. I didn't try to defend myself. I simply listened. The words hurt, but they also made things clear. There was no misunderstanding left to fix. No explanation that would change their minds. As I left that night, I felt strangely calm again. The disappointment was deep, but it was clean. I finally accepted the truth. The betrayal wasn't sudden. It had been there all along. I had just refused to see it. Now that I did, I knew I had to stop playing the role they had assigned to me. After that, I stopped reacting. I didn't argue or defend myself anymore. Instead of fighting to stay, I started planning how to leave. Quietly. Carefully. I told no one outside my house what I was doing. Even inside, I kept things calm so the kids wouldn't feel the tension. I focused on one goal: stability. I looked for a new place that fit our budget and our needs. It took time, but I found something simple and safe. When everything was approved, I signed the papers without telling Ryan. I wanted my next step to be solid before he knew anything had changed. At the same time, I gathered everything. Old receipts. Messages. Emails. Notes about repairs and conversations. I organized them by date and kept copies. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted protection. I had trusted too easily before. I wasn't going to make that mistake again. To Ryan, I acted tired and quiet. I let him think the pressure was working. I kept my head down and spoke only when necessary. A few days later, he reached out with a different tone. He said he had thought about it and was willing to lower the rent a little. He acted like he was being kind. Like I should be thankful. I thanked him and said I needed time to think. That response confused him. He expected relief or praise. Instead, he got silence. After a few more days, I politely declined the offer. I didn't explain myself. I just said it wouldn't work for my family. That's when his confidence started to crack. He called more often. He asked questions he hadn't asked before. He wanted updates. I gave him none. The lack of reaction bothered him more than any argument ever had. For the first time, I wasn't chasing his approval. I wasn't trying to fix things. I was moving forward on my own terms. Planning my exit didn't feel like running away. It felt like taking control back. I knew the moment I finally left, things would change. But I was ready. This time, I wasn't stepping into the unknown. I had a plan, documents, and a future that didn't depend on anyone else's power over me. The day we moved out was quiet. No arguments. No speeches. I handed over the keys, loaded the last box, and drove away with my family. The kids were excited about the new place. Marissa looked relieved. I felt lighter than I had in months. I didn't tell Ryan where we were going. I didn't need to. Weeks passed. Life slowly returned to normal. Then I started hearing things through the family. At first, it was vague comments. Stress. Bad timing. Problems with the house. Then the truth came out. The property had been inspected after a complaint. It wasn't dramatic or loud. Just official. The kind of thing that comes with paperwork and deadlines. The inspection didn't go well for Ryan. Issues were listed. Fines followed. Repairs were ordered. Banks started asking questions. Loans that were once flexible suddenly weren't. Money that Ryan expected to have wasn't there anymore. The confident tone he used for years disappeared almost overnight. The family that once laughed grew quiet. Conversation stopped mid-sentence when I entered a room. Whispers replaced jokes. No one apologized, but no one bragged anymore either. The balance had shifted, and everyone felt it. Then Ryan called me. His voice was sharp and angry. He accused me of turning against him. He said I had stabbed him in the back and embarrassed him. He talked about loyalty and blood, like those words still meant something to him. I let him speak without interrupting. When he finally stopped, I answered calmly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult him. I told him the truth. I said I had followed the rules that applied to everyone. I said I did what I was allowed to do to protect my family. Then I said one sentence that ended the conversation. I told him he taught me something important. He taught me that family doesn't protect you when power is involved. The law does. There was silence on the line. Then he hung up. I didn't feel happy about what happened to him. I didn't celebrate. what I felt was closure. For the first time, the fear was gone. I hadn't destroyed anything. I had simply stopped accepting unfair treatment. And that choice changed everything. Not long after that, the tone in my family changed again. Ryan stopped acting like everything was under control. His problems became harder to hide. Properties were sold. Plans were cancelled. The confidence that once filled every room he entered was gone. In its place was frustration and silence. My parents reached out and asked if we could talk. They said they wanted to clear the air and move forward as a family. The words sounded gentle, but I noticed something different. They were careful now. No commands. No lectures. Just requests. That alone told me how much things had changed. When we sat down, they spoke about misunderstanding and stress. They said no one meant to hurt anyone. I listened without interrupting. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice or accuse them. I simply reminded them of what happened. I told them they laughed. I told them they agreed with the decision. I told them they watched while my children were being pushed out of their home and said nothing. There was no argument after that. Just silence. Claire came to me later, away from everyone else. She apologized quietly. She said she should have spoken up. I believed she meant it. I thanked her, but I didn't pretend it erased what had happened. Some moments change relationships forever. I didn't enjoy any of this. I wasn't trying to prove a point or win anything. All I wanted was respect and safety for my family. For the first time, I said clearly what I needed. I said I was open to forgiveness, but trust would take time. I said I wouldn't accept being treated as less than ever again. They listened. Walking away that day felt different from before. I wasn't angry. I wasn't scared. I felt grounded. The balance had shifted, not because I took power from anyone, but because I stopped giving mine away. I learned that setting boundaries doesn't mean you stop loving people. It means you stop letting them hurt you. From that point on, every relationship in my life had to meet one basic rule. Respect came first. Everything else was optional. Life in the new house felt different from the first day we moved in. It was quiet, safe, and ours. The kids ran freely in the backyard, laughed in their rooms, and slept without worry. Marissa and I finally had the space to talk without tension or fear. Our marriage felt stronger. Every small moment felt lighter because the stress of the old house and the battles with Ryan were gone. I didn't follow Ryan or check on his life. I didn't need to. The news came through family updates and whispers. He was losing properties, struggling with loans, and facing the results of ignoring rules and responsibility. The same person who once held power over me now struggled to keep his world together. I felt no joy in it, only a quiet acknowledgement that life had a way of balancing itself. I often thought about what revenge really meant. It wasn't about yelling or making him pay publicly. It wasn't about humiliation or retaliation. True revenge, I realized, was self-respect. It was making decisions for myself and my family, standing up when needed, and refusing to let someone else control our lives. Walking away gave me something Ryan never could take: dignity. The years of trust and loyalty I had invested weren't wasted, they became lessons in what matters most. Stability, safety, and freedom were priceless. No one could take them away, and no one could raise the cost. That was my real victory. I spent time enjoying small things I had missed: cooking with my kids, quiet mornings with Marissa, and evenings without tension. Every day reminded me that living well and peacefully was the ultimate answer to betrayal. I no longer carried anger or fear. I carried confidence. The past with Ryan felt distant now. I didn't need to revisit it, and I didn't. I had everything I wanted in life: a family who felt secure, a home that was ours, and the ability to make choices without fear. The lesson was clear. True power doesn't come from forcing others to obey or from wealth alone. It comes from knowing your worth, protecting those you love, and moving forward with clarity and calm. That was my quiet victory. That was my freedom.